depression days.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to MusicReach. We have the pleasure to sit down with Catherine M. Thompson today. She is a Celtic jazz stylist, but does many other genres, which she is currently working on her new album, Wildcat. Welcome to the show, Catherine.
Thank you so much, Corey. It's a real pleasure to be here.
So you have quite the history of not only in music, but also in dance, choreography, and storytelling and poetry.
Yes, I go back many years, and so my early, other than my regular education, my early education was in dance. I studied dance from the time I was 7 years old with Arrington Dance Studios in London, Ontario, and by the time that I was 17, I had an advanced ballet certificate, and I went on eventually to get my degree in dance from York University, Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in dance, in modern dance, actually. And by that time, I had begun to create choreographies, and also while I was at York, taking a dance therapy course, I learned a method of storytelling, which I sort of added to my repertoire of work in the community. So that's where that all comes from. And I mean, I performed professionally from the time I was 14, variety dance, at the last 2 years of the Canadettes at the CNE, that kind of thing. And it became something that just carried me through my life. When I was almost 40, I went back to school to get my teaching certificate. And after I started teaching high school, I had a specialist in drama because my undergrad at York included some drama. Then dance became the fourth arts, recognized as an art form in Ontario education. So I was part of the team that wrote the first dance curriculum and became an honors dance specialist as well. So I was able to teach dance in high school. And that's kind of what I did till I was 55 years old.
Wow, so you're pretty creative and artistic in an all-around fashion.
I am, and I tell you what, Corey, it's an interesting thing about being an artist, because people seem to think of it as something outside the box, but in my family, being an artist is like other families that have plumbers or lawyers or farmers. In our family, we have business people and educators and nurses and artists. There's lots of artists in my very extended family. So it's kind of a regular thing. It's not a big deal, really. Yeah.
So were your parents big influences, kind of like what they listened to? Did they, the music they listened to, influence you in the direction of genres that you ended up in?
I've thought about this a lot, and actually the first time I heard someone say the words that come out of my mouth sometimes was at Song Studio last week. They interviewed Andrea Romolo, who talked about having an early life as a dancer and how that music of dance was internalized. However, my father was a musician, and he used to sit us down with records, big LPs of big band music and so forth, and point out the instruments. So this is listen, you can hear the bass there, you can hear the drums there, that's the saxophone, and So someone who was not educated in music, as four of my other sisters were educated in music, piano, and one took up violin later and one took up guitar. I was not, but I'm the one who ended up being the songwriter. And I think between my father's talking about music and my dance incorporating music into my body, and then my writing, my creative writing, it all sort of came together in music in my head and then out my mouth.
Did you find, I guess, after you retired that you didn't have the typical 9 to 5 anymore? Did you notice that you were more open to creativity, I guess because there's not as much stress in your life? No.
Well, it was more a matter of finding that I now finally had the time. Mm-hmm. Didn't have as much income, don't forget, fixed income. Because I taught from the time I was 40 till I was 63, so I have a good pension. Teachers always have a good pension, which we pay into, by the way, of course. Yeah. because some people don't get that. And however, it's like half what my husband, but it has given me the freedom to do these things within a a budget. And this is how I think about it. I have these songs I found from going to song studio the very first summer in 2012. I retired in 2011, went to song studio in 2012, and every summer since. And becoming more active in Songwriters Association of Canada, which I joined, in 2003 or something. And I just joined NSAI, but I Nashville Songwriters, but I haven't done anything with them yet. But anyway, I became more active. I was out there singing. I found with Song Studio that the creative juices hadn't stopped flowing. I'm still writing new stuff. I'm not very prolific, but I've been really happy with the songs that I've finished since then, and taking my old songs and grouping them in with the newer songs into these genres, as I mentioned, into Celtic Cat in 2015 and Cool Cat in 2017 and Wildcat coming up. I think of it as like this. One of my sisters, I'll keep saying one of my sisters because I have 5 of them, okay?
Okay.
One of my sisters is, among many other things, a painter. She has these beautiful acrylics. And she, so she has the freedom, again, another retired person, to stand in front of a canvas for 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever it takes until she decides, all right, it's finished. If you're a songwriter, you don't have that freedom, and you don't have that concrete thing unless you make a concrete thing. And so what I decided to do was that I would think of my CDs as if I was painting a picture, that I would put my songs together in a package as to the extent that I could afford to produce it, to, package it and so forth. And then as a business, which I'm slowly getting better at, to put it out there, to share it, to sell it, to submit it to competitions and so on. And so there's just this real satisfaction in that I have this thing in front of me that I have made with the help of my producer and wonderful other musicians. So that's kind of what I decided to do with the music.
Well, that's incredible. I also want to bring up, I know that you're a member of the FIMC, and for people who don't know what the FIMC is, it's the Female Indie Musician Community, and the creators of that was Bree Noble, Shayla Verkamp, and Beth Matthew. I think Shayla Verkamp was just interviewed along with you, and Beth and Bree were the creators. Is that correct?
Bree Noble is the creator, and she's sort of the driving force behind it, and she comes up with these videos of interviews. I don't know how she finds the people. She did a 10-day summit where there were 3 or 4 interviews that we could watch per day with people from every aspect of the music business. They were quite phenomenal, with people explaining how you could use various aspects of the business to further your own ends. And there was a cost to it, but I bought kind of the smallest package I could so that I could keep the videos for future viewing. Bree Noble is her, she's the one who runs the community. So Bree looks after the membership, and she's done an amazing job because the membership continues to grow. There's a map that you can look at if you go into the community, where people from all over the world have put their pin on the map as to where they are. So I'm hoping that if I can get out to the next open mic at the Moonshine, that I'm going to meet 2 or 3 other women who are part of that community. In fact, I believe 2 of them are in Kitchener-Waterloo, but who have made a point to come up to Oakville to the Moonshine, to the open mic. So that might not happen until September, because the rest of my August is kind of busy. But there's just this wonderful thing every day you go on, and Bree will post a thing like shout out if you're a Canadian, or shout out if you're in the Southwest United States. She does things like Motivation Monday. What's your one goal for this week? And then she does Follow Up Friday. How has that worked out? So there's just this great sharing. For instance, someone the other day, I believe yesterday, posted a video about Elizabeth Cotton, who I had never heard of. And Elizabeth Cotton is this amazing, amazing African-American woman who died in 1987, I believe, at the age of 95. She got her one and only Grammy in 93, and she is like the roots of the folk movement, the folk music movement.
Wow.
And you know the song Freight Train?
Yeah.
Remember? Okay, she wrote it when she was 11.
Wow.
So you learn about other women, what kind of, women who have just started writing, women who've been writing for a long time, what their struggles are, what their successes are. It's just really a wonderful sharing group. And there's just so much to learn from Bree with her business acumen and from the other women in the community. So it's one of the places. I'm not great at social media, but it is one of the places on Facebook that I feel very comfortable.
So how about you give us a little bit of insight on some musical influences of yours, some favorite musicians, people that you'd like to promote, whether they're mainstream or independent. I do notice a lot of jazz is in your influence, so I'm sure you listen to a lot of jazz musicians.
Well, I have to admit that my second radio station, besides listening to, CBC, if I switch over to 91.1, which is Jazz FM, and I have donated on occasion. I love jazz because, I'm old enough. I was born in 1947, and so my early years were listening to the standards, and then to the early rock and roll. I can remember when Elvis showed up on TV, that kind of thing. But all the standards, I just absolutely love. So whether it's Peggy Lee or Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, that kind of thing. And also, I love the, Duke Ellington and all the Louis Armstrong, big band sounds were fantastic. And a lot of that comes from my dad, who was a musician in his early days. Then, like I said, all of the classical music, I heard my sisters playing it on the piano, plus I was dancing to it in ballet class, and then in tap class and jazz class, all kinds of music, all sorts of stuff. I had Lillian Marlowe Graham, who was one of the teachers at the Arringtons, created a modern jazz piece with a lot of dance moves from pop music at the time to I think it was, I don't know if it was I Want to Hold Your Hand or She Loves Me, but one of the really early Beatles music, so it was all there. Did a little bit of social dance, at ballroom dance at some of the dance meetings that we had. So there, the cha-cha and bossa nova and things kind of wove into it. It's just a tapestry. Now, as I became an adult, then besides the Beatles, which everybody has the Beatles and the Stones and so forth, but I love, because I think right even before I knew it, I was a lyricist. And so the people I truly, truly love are the wonderful lyricists. People like Joni Mitchell. I'm reading her biography right now, and she's just such a brilliant lyricist. Leonard Cohen, Paul Simon, these people who are truly wordsmiths. And in a way, although their music is very different and very, very poetic and totally structured, they break all the Nashville rules. I love it. But in a way, that harkens back to where I started with the standards. If you look at the Great American Songbook, what you're looking at and what you're listening to are brilliant lyricists, brilliant composers as well, but the words are important. And so those are my influences, people who write wonderful lyrics.
Well, there was one, I don't know if you intentionally, I thought it was an excellent song, and I talked to you early about this, is the one I really enjoyed most off your Spotify was Dancing to the Neverland. And I believe that was on your Cool Cat album, was it not?
Yes, it is. Dancing to the Neverland, it's interesting because I think one other person told me recently that that was their favorite. Prior to that, people love Swing Daddy. They love Tender Lips, which is the kind of bossa nova one, and various other ones down the road. But I think Dancing to the Neverland appeals to certain people, and it's very different. It's the most poetic. It flips between a square time and a 3/4 time. I think it's not actually 3/4. I think it's something like, 6/8 or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But so the choruses go into that 3/4, that waltz type time.
I like it. It's original.
It's interesting how you discover things. So I had lined up. I knew I wanted Jazz Money, which is Christopher Weatherstone on sax, Malcolm Connor on upright bass, and Jared Goldman on drums, although I think the drummer has changed by now, and Alistair Bradley from Sound Studios, wonderful on keyboard, on piano. And then I had Aaron and Shannon Roselle, Aaron Thompson and Aaron Nora Thompson, my daughter, and Shannon Roselle did the backup on Swing Daddy and on Easy Chair. But I said to Chris, the thing about Dancing to the Neverland is I need, I know there's a different sound that I want. And I went to see Christopher Weatherstone one night in one of his other groups, which is called Weatherstone. And here was this guy, Mike Eckert, playing pedal steel guitar. I was just like, oh my God, that's the sound for Dancing to the Neverland.
Yeah.
Difference between Celtic Cat and Cool Cat is that Chris basically, he had the songs, he did everything that he wanted to do with the songs on Celtic Cat. For Cool Cat, I had very specific ideas. I knew what I wanted it to look like. I knew what I wanted it to sound like. And Chris was so accommodating because I said, this is who I want on these songs, and he did it. And he added his own guitar up until Reunion, which Nate Hill did. So Dancing to the Neverland is this piece that I started, I can't find the original poem that I wrote, but I wrote a poem once, which starts with, I float on the opium of new kisses, and that's the opening line to Dancing to the Neverland. But it was a poem that evolved into a song, and it's one of the songs, that I rarely ever sing because I think it might be a little daunting for people to listen to that whole song a cappella, and there's that whole high part at the end, which for some people is too high. Mm-hmm. But I think it came out beautifully. I love the pedal steel guitar on it, and or pedal steel guitar. Yeah, mm-hmm. It's gorgeous what we did and what Chris did with it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful song. I really liked it. It for some reason, it reminded me of Joe Bonamassa, who's this blues guitar player who's coming up now. Well, he's been around for a while, but I think he's just getting more traction in the music industry now. He's a really good guitar player, kind of like Eric Clapton.
Well, I do know the name, but I can't picture the face, so I'm going to have to look him up and have a... Yeah, absolutely.
It just has that feel. I honestly heard him playing over top of it as soon as it started playing. I was like, wow, this reminds me a lot of Joe Bonamassa. This is really cool.
Yeah, mate.
Yes, for sure. I even thought maybe you were listening to him and were influenced or inspired, or.
No. In 2013, I wrote a song called "On the Water," which is the first song on Celtic Cat. Mm-hmm. I started it at Song Studio, and I knew it was going to say, "On the water, da 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 dee. On the water, la da 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 da, ba 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 ba." So in that particular case, I had the chorus I knew it was going to be on the water, because that's the only place I truly relax is when I'm on the water. So I wanted to build a song on that, and I kind of got the melody in that case a little ahead of the rest of the words.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had to keep going over it and let the words come out. And I finished it later that summer at a friend's cottage, and I had it really nailed down by November of 2013. I was at a Songwriters Association of Canada Toronto Regional Writers Group at Free Times. Chris Burkett was the guest speaker. I got up at the open mic session. I was number 10. Got up at the open mic session and sang it. And Chris was he is just like, wow, I love that song. Can't get the chorus out of my head. He said, you need a really strong Celtic singer, because by that time my voice would start to go a little froggy, which I don't care about in any other, situation.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and a good Irish band, and when you make a demo, bring it to me, and I'll see if I can help you out. So I said later, after talking to one of his other artists, Joyce Aldrich, who said, just talk to Chris about it. As I was leaving, I said, Chris, I know who can sing this. My daughter, who's half my age, sounds enough like me, but she's got this beautiful voice. And she's the one who sang it as AKA Emily Brady, because she does a whole other different thing that she wanted to be an AKA. So she's AKA Emily Brady on Celtic Cat, sings 4 of the songs. And I said, but I don't have an Irish band in my back pocket. I have no idea how I can get a demo made. So Chris said, fine, when you're ready to record, I will give you an estimate. And I said, okay, I'm a senior citizen, fixed budget, fixed income. It's going to have to be a shoestring. He said, I'll be as shoestring as possible to make it happen. So we did it. He asked for an uilleann piper, which I tracked down and found a guy named Ian Harper, which turned out to be Lorena McKinnott's piper. And he came down to put the uilleann pipes on. He said, I want a mandolin player. My friend from Song Studio, Matt Gerber, who plays like a gazillion instruments, ukulele and mouth harp and kazoo and guitar, also mandolin, came in and did the mandolin. And Christopher Weatherstone put saxophone on Closer to the Truth and sang the duet of Sea Song, the Sea Song duet with Emily Brady. And Chris Burkett did all the other instruments on that 5-song EP on Celtic Cat. And the reason that happened, I know I'm digressing here, but the reason that happened, Corey, is because when I heard what Chris had done with On the Water, I just said, this is a demo? Oh my God. Mm-hmm. And he's so thrilled with it. So then I went back to him and I said, well, okay, but can we do these other 4 songs and just put it together in a package? And we sort of regrouped and did that. And I sang Breathtaking Gown, which, I like it. And, but I'm really thrilled that my daughter did the Emily Brady singing on the 4 others. And that's when I started working with Chris. So that was my first experience working with someone like him. And we've just had a really good working relationship since.
I want to ask you, since you have been around for a lot longer,
yes.
How have you overall feel about how the music industry, I guess, has changed from when you were a child to now? Mainstream, independent, especially with the internet now, a lot of people can self-promote themselves or send their songs out for free or to sell. How have you noticed it change, I guess, in the past 40, 50 years?
I mean, things were very different back when, because you turned on the radio, you bought an LP, you bought a 45, and eventually you bought tapes, and then you bought CDs and so on. And I still buy CDs. Boy, if I've got a songwriter friend and they've got a CD out there, I try to get it. Or I go online and I download it to iTunes. Mm-hmm. So I know there was real resistance to the whole Spotify thing and everything and the streaming. And I felt it because the first song of mine that was recorded commercially and got me into SOCAN was back in about 2004. A group from Niagara called Sister Loon, small case Saster, large Lune. Sister Loon did a CD called Many Moons. I had a little ukulele song called Little Boat Moon, and they ended up taking that song and recording it and making it their signature song. They added stuff to the end about, we're called Sister Loon, come back and see us real soon. And they used to sing it at, concerts that they did and so forth. It got played a couple of times on CBC radio. I mean, I made $29 or $39 or something like that in royalties just as a songwriter. Mm-hmm. Come up to now, and now part of it is my fault because I've registered with RACS, which is one of the performance royalty companies, but I haven't done the filling out the form thing I have to do with them. And there's, neighboring rights. There's all these rights that I'm still dumb about, and I haven't sat down and filled out the forms. Mm-hmm. But the company, Silver Birch Productions, that mastered my CDs and is now, collecting from the aggregator, collecting my royalties. I mean, you look at them and just, it's so pathetic because all these streams, like if you listen to something of mine on Spotify, yeah, that gets a notice. I get well, as you probably know, Corey, I get, 0.0004 cents or something like that.
Yeah.
It takes so long for that money to build up to any kind. So after a whole year or so of this, I've got, $25 or $40 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's the huge change for the songwriter. And since I'm not going to be going down to Nashville and being signed to sit in a room with 3 other songwriters and do songwriting. Maybe if I was 30, I might, but not now. Yeah. Right? So the fact that the music industry has changed the way it has changed, at least at this point, is not good for me in a way. I can get tons more exposure through all of these online streaming and just, posting things to here and there. I don't post stuff on Facebook because I'm not sure what the deal is with Facebook. I post all kinds of events, but I don't put my stuff on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, it's on Apple, it's on SoundCloud. It's on Amazon Digital in the States. I don't know if anyone's ever bought it there. Mm-hmm. And although so the money thing isn't good. However, it's real cool. I got this, I have this guy in Denmark who loves On the Water. I've got this guy in London, UK, London, England, who loves the Cool Cat CD and, particularly Swing Daddy. And that came through him asking for links in one of the Facebook groups, and I put my Spotify link in there, and he just went bananas over it. And of course, I hear back from him through Messenger or through Twitter or something. So it's kind of fascinating. And I think there are people who are really learning how to navigate and promote, like you say, self-promote. And I'm not there yet. And I got, I'm facing a rapidly closing window at my age. But, at the same time, I'm secure in my life. And so I don't have to be making money from this. It would just be nice to get some more back of what I put into it.
Exactly. I appreciate you taking the time with me today. That's all the time we have for now.
It's been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time and chatting with us and telling us basically everything you've done. Thanks a lot.
I mean, you can stuff a lot of things into your life,
Yeah, you sure can. Well, thanks a lot, Catherine, and we'll chat soon as Wildcat comes out.
All right, then. Bye-bye.
Take care, Catherine.
Bye.
Well, in the end, he was a labor leader. When he was 62 at a railroad union do, they let him sit in for a set that he had